Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been one of the only world leaders to praise U.S. President Donald Trump for reimposing sanctions on Iran. Netanyahu called the decision an important moment for Israel, the U.S., the Middle East, and the world. He then urged the European Union to follow suit and end efforts to preserve the 2015 nuclear accord. As a counter move, a new EU law went into effect just as Washington's snapback measures were being reinstated. The legislation is specifically aimed at sheltering European companies that continue to do business with the rogue Islamic Republic.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu postponed a slated visit to Colombia to focus on securing a truce to end the escalation of violence emanating from Gaza. He convened the Security Cabinet to discuss the avoidance of another war with Hamas, including United Nations and Egyptian brokered proposals. There's been a surge in tension since March when Palestinians began a campaign of weekly riots on the border, accompanied by the launching of incendiary materials into Israel attached to kites, balloons, tires, and live birds. There has been a spate of shelling exchanges and Gaza sniper attacks that killed one Israeli soldier and wounded another. One Arab shooter used 20 Gaza children as human shields during his attack.
Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Ministry released the first photos of its new underwater barrier to repel Hamas infiltration by sea. The project has been under construction for 2 months and should be finished by the end of next year. When completed, the impregnable breakwater will be about 20 feet high, 160 feet wide, and extend 660 feet from the Israeli coastline into the Mediterranean just north of Gaza. The Israeli Navy has also stepped up its use of advanced technology and training of SEAL commandos. A new sensor system is being deployed to alert the IDF of any attempted breaches, of which there have been dozens since the last war with Hamas in 2014. In other developments, Defense Chief Avigdor Lieberman suspended all fuel and gas shipments into Gaza following an earlier halt of all non-essential commercial goods until further notice. The action was taken in retaliation for the aerial firebomb attacks.
Israel's been given a helping hand from America in fighting the ongoing wave of Gaza ecological terror. 10 top firefighters joined their Israeli counterparts and IDF troops at the front lines as part of the Emergency Volunteers Project that trains and deploys fire and rescue personnel to the Jewish state in times of crisis. U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman personally thanked the crew and said that it was impossible to think of a better way to demonstrate the incredible solidarity, love, and cooperation between the American and Israeli people.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Iran that it will be confronted by an international coalition, including the Israeli military, if it tries to block the Bab el-Mandeb Strait that links the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. The premier made the statement at a naval ceremony for new officers following reports that the hardline Islamic Republic may attempt to attack Israeli ships. The 18-mile wide waterways on the main sea route from the Middle East to Europe, through which hundreds of ships pass each day. Iranian leaders just concluded war games in the area and claimed they may block the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf if further U.S. sanctions prevent them from exporting oil. Saudi Arabia suspended its own crude shipments through the strait 2 weeks ago after Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthi rebels attacked 2 of its vessels. Last week, we reported a possible change of U.S. policy after American Ambassador David Friedman paid a condolence call to the family of a terror victim in the Jewish biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria. The Palestinian Authority slammed the envoy's visit as provocative and referred to him only as the Trump administration's ambassador to Tel Aviv in non-recognition of Israel. Even though the PA was quick to condemn Friedman for comforting a grieving widow of 2 young toddlers, it's yet to condemn the murder of the Israeli citizen by the Palestinian terrorist. Even more disturbing, the Mahmoud Abbas-run PA officially recognized the killer as a martyr for his heroic act.
During her first ever interview, Osama bin Laden's mother said that a Palestinian is responsible for her son's Islamic radicalism. Alia Ghanem told the British Guardian newspaper that her son was brainwashed while studying at university and converted to jihadism by his Palestinian mentor, Abdullah Azzam, who belonged to the Muslim Brotherhood. Ghanem said that she warned her son to stay away from the terror group, which she referred to as a cult that received funding for its cause. Bin Laden, who is the architect of the 9/11 terrorist attacks that killed 2,976 Americans and wounded more than 6,000 others, was said to have been exceptionally close to his mother. She told the paper that she'd had no contact with him between the 1999 al-Qaeda attacks on 2 U.S. embassies in Africa that killed more than 200 people and his death by Navy SEALs in 2011. Azzam, who is frequently called the father of global jihad, was assassinated in a 1989 car bomb attack in Pakistan.
Turning to the United Kingdom, where several new reports have surfaced further tarnishing Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn with allegations of anti-Semitism. It was pointed out that in 2011, Corbyn led a parliamentary move to remove the word Holocaust from the International Day of Remembrance and instead rename it Genocide Memorial Day. Karen Pollock, the chief executive of the Holocaust Educational Trust, said the campaign appeared to be politically motivated. She stressed that Holocaust Memorial Day serves to remember all victims of the Nazis as well as subsequent genocides, while also recognizing the unique characteristics of the Holocaust and the centrality of anti-Semitism to the Nazi attempt to exterminate European Jewry. It was also revealed that Corbyn hosted an event at the British Parliament in 2010 where speakers equated Israel to Nazi Germany. One Holocaust survivor told reporters that Corbyn instructed police to throw Jewish dissenters out of the event when they objected to the comparison or tried to speak up on behalf of Israel.
Archaeologists have discovered the Bima, central platform of the Great Synagogue of Vilna, from which the Torah was once read to generations of Lithuanian Jews. The 17th century house of worship was the center of Jewish life in the city until it was demolished by Nazi forces 73 years ago. Post-war, Soviet authorities then built a school over the ruins in the 1950s. The ongoing excavations also unearthed part of the synagogue's back wall as well as an adjacent ritual bath. An Israeli archaeologist expressed joy over the findings and the exciting possibility that the relics of the Great Synagogue will once again become a pilgrimage site for worshippers.
Tunisia has bowed to pressure and reversed course after barring an Israeli girl from next year's international chess tournament. 7-year-old prodigy Liel Levitan is the reigning European champion, but the Muslim nation would not allow her to compete due to her Israeli nationality. The invitation was finally extended after the World Chess Federation threatened to revoke Tunisia's chance to host the tournament. The International Judo Federation also ramped up the pressure by canceling competitions in Tunisia as well as the United Arab Emirates for their failure to guarantee the equal treatment of all participants. At last year's Grand Slam, Abu Dhabi refused to acknowledge the nationality of the Israeli team, fly the country's flag, or play the national anthem during ceremonies for Israel's 5 medalists.
The ruling African National Congress Party in South Africa is renowned as one of the most anti-Israel governments in the world, and now many Christians have had enough. More than 5,000 members of the South African Supporters of Israel group took to the streets of Pretoria to demand the reinstatement of full diplomatic relations with Israel. The country's ambassador was withdrawn last May following the outbreak of the Gaza border protests. The demonstrators also gathered 40,000 signatures on a petition calling for an immediate end to the ANC efforts to further downgrade ties. And it can't be forgotten that the boycott, divestment, and sanctions hate movement originated in South Africa during the infamous Durban Conference in 2001. One of the Christian pastors at the rally insisted that anyone who advocated cutting ties with Israel was undermining our faith. He added that the protesters were representative of millions of Christians across the country who will make their voices heard at the ballot box if the regime does not end its patronage of Hamas.
The Standard & Poor's credit rating agency just upgraded Israel to AA-, which is the highest level ever achieved by the Jewish state. The increase places Israel above financial powerhouse states such as China and Japan and underscores confidence in the fiscal responsibility and future economic growth of the Jewish state. Finance Minister Moshe Kachlan celebrated the S&P decision, which he said will benefit the nation by saving billions of shekels that can now be passed on to the health, education, and welfare ministries.
The Jerusalem municipality is facilitating the swift expansion of the new U.S. Embassy in Israel. Mayor Nir Barkat signed all the necessary renovation permits while expressing happiness that he was able to support the strategic decision by U.S. President Donald Trump to officially recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and to relocate America's official diplomatic compound to the city. The new embassy was inaugurated on May 14th to coincide with Israel's 70th anniversary. 7,500 square feet are set to be added to the former consulate building, allowing for increased staff, new entrances, and enlarged service areas for the public.
International tourist arrivals in Israel hit a record 3.6 million last year, pumping $5.5 billion into the economy. 3/4 of those visitors opted to spend their time in Jerusalem, but now Eilat is hoping to attract more holidaymakers. The Red Sea resort city is preparing to open the new Ramon International Airport, capable of handling 20 takeoffs and landings an hour. The airport is named in memory of the first Israeli astronaut, Ilan Ramon, who perished in the 2003 Columbia Space Shuttle disaster, and for his son Asaf, an Air Force captain who died 6 years later when his F-16 fighter jet crashed over the hills of Judea and Samaria. The $500 million facility will replace the Avda terminal 40 miles away, where more than 175,000 foreign tourists were welcomed during the first 5 months of this year. That's double the entire figure for 2017. Eilat's beautiful beaches are especially popular in the winter season because the area remains warm and sunny year-round.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Pnina Shor. She's in charge of the Israel Antiquity Authority's Dead Sea Scroll Department. Pnina, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little about what happens in the Department of the Dead Sea Scrolls within the Israel Antiquities Authority.
We have a department dedicated to the Dead Sea Scrolls because the Dead Sea Scrolls are the most important discovery of the 20th century, and therefore the Israel Antiquities Authority decided to establish a department dedicated solely to the scrolls, to the conservation, preservation, curation, and digitization. For the last 8 years, we've been digitizing every single fragment of the Dead Sea Scrolls, put them out there in the open, and not only to preserve them and not only to have them open to the scholarly world, but to the public worldwide.
Recently, there was actually a massive discovery when it came to the Dead Sea Scrolls. Can you tell us what was the recent discovery about?
Yes, the recent discovery is actually a minute fragment that makes the whole difference. Because you know, the scrolls they were found almost 70 years ago, kind of coinciding with our independence, and not symbolically, I believe, or symbolically, I believe, and so the majority in the last 2 decades have been published, and now they're open to, again, the scholarly world and the public worldwide. But with our digitization project, in which we digitize every single fragment, and we're talking about 1,000 manuscripts comprising of thousands and thousands of fragments. We have over 25,000 fragments so far. Every so often we discover a new fragment. Now this particular one belongs our young PhD student, Owen Abelman, actually managed to decipher a word in Hebrew, Zimra, song, that belongs to our big psalm scroll from Cave 11. And this tiny little fragment with one word, which he managed to put in place, actually gives you, in a concise way, what the Dead Sea Scrolls are about and why every single fragment is so important. And why is that? Because this single fragment actually shows you, first of all, a missing phrase, and secondly, that the version that we have of this particular psalm is slightly different from the canonized Hebrew Bible that we have today. So in that sense, it's very important both for scholarly research and for public knowledge of how the Bible evolved through the ages.
One of the most amazing things, and we've reported on our show about this, is not only are you discovering these things, but you're using modern technology to read them. If these things were found 100 years ago, you wouldn't even be able to decipher them. Can you tell us a little about the technology behind the actual discovery?
Yes, and that's exactly the point. The technology that we're using the utmost developed technology for these most ancient manuscripts, which are of course most important to us. So we're using technology that was adapted for the Dead Sea Scrolls from, it's a NASA technology that was developed for research of space at the Jet Propulsion Lab in California. And that camera was developed, or this particular camera that we're using, developed that technology especially for the scrolls. And so yes, it's using the highest technology for deciphering manuscripts 2,000 years old.
You know, we live in an age where there's a lot of revisionist history. UNESCO just passed a resolution last year saying that there is no connection between Judaism and the land of Israel. How important are these discoveries to dispelling the myth that Judaism and Christianity are not connected to this land?
These are the kind of questions I don't like to answer because I think we should look at our cultural heritage as separate from politics. One just has to look at these manuscripts and see for himself that, you know, we're talking about manuscripts that evolved through the ages, manuscripts that were important to our people, to all the monotheistic religions, and that were written at the time when both Judaism and Christianity were developing, and they're both important to our heritage, our mutual heritage, and therefore I'm not there to argue with anyone if it's our right or not. It's written, it's there. So people just need to look and see for themselves.
Is there any debate in the academic world that these are actually real documents that came from our history, or are people accepting the fact that this is a real archaeological find that's been validated? Because I don't see any politics here. It's either it is or it isn't.
I don't think anyone who knows what these scrolls are about and knows where they come from can negate their authenticity and their what they tell us about our history.
People are going all over the world to try to see the Dead Sea Scrolls. How is it that so many people want to see this in their own communities, that people are flocking to this?
In the last 2 decades, the Israel Antiquities Authority has made a point of having an exhibition, especially in the United States, at every point in time. Right now we have an exhibition in Denver, Colorado, which is actually towards the end. So those of you from Colorado are invited to go and see it. And yes, you'll see that in every venue that we exhibit the scrolls, be it in the States, be it in Canada, be it in Australia or in Europe, people, this is our origin. So when people come and stand in front of these manuscripts, they are in awe. They are in awe because these are, as one of these visitors said, these are the words of God. And so these scrolls it's something beyond intellectualism. It's something beyond your beliefs, if you're a believer or not. It's something in these manuscripts that causes people very, very strong emotions.
You know, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
To see the scrolls, go online. We are putting everything online to share with the world and share this common heritage amongst all of us.
Thank you, Nina, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Greg Maisel, the Director General of Keren HaYesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Aryeh Oz is one of Israel's most famed pilots and was responsible for helping to bring home our brothers and sisters from Ethiopia. Let his story inspire you to help bring home the next generation of Ethiopian Olim.
I was born in Germany. My family fled Germany after the Kristallnacht to Holland with an intention to immigrate to Palestine. However, the Germans conquered Holland and we were stuck in Holland. It was 1942 when we were summoned to the German headquarters and told that we have to evacuate our home to an extermination camp in Poland. A student came over and said, "We have a hiding place for you." The next day I found myself in a Dutch farming family. They kept me for 3 years. I immigrated into Israel in 1946. I was almost 11 years old. I was completely alone in this world. Wherever I came, somebody or some institute came to my rescue. The biggest of all was a youth village where I came to. The educational management took me by the hand and guided me and gave me a start which made my way up to flying school a piece of cake. I was selected by the Air Force to become a cadet in the most famous Israeli Air Force. I was grateful that I could repay in a small way and contribute to the same effort. This mutual responsibility, from which I gained so much, followed through my whole career in the Air Force. I was the third captain who flew a C-130, a Hercules, to Entebbe and rescued so and so many people. When we were told that we have to fly 4 airplanes to Entebbe at weights beyond any imagination, we didn't ask any question. We said, it is needed, it will be done. In the early 90s, we were about to evacuate 14,500 Ethiopian Jews from Addis Ababa to Tel Aviv. We had 760 seats in our aircraft. However, when they arrived and all the seats were occupied, commanding officer of the operation came over and said, "We need you to take more people on." And my answer was, you don't have to ask even. It's obvious. Bring them on. I set the world record. I brought on one flight 1,087 people from Addis Ababa to Ben Gurion Airport. When we descended and came over Jerusalem and made a left turn towards Ben Gurion, and the whole oil aircraft was singing Yerushalayim of gold, there was not one person in the cockpit who had no tears in his eyes. Every time that when I made my walk around, I always looked up and saw the Star of David and said to myself, gee, this is Israel. This is the Jewish people.
Join Keren HaYesod in celebrating Israel's 70th anniversary by donating only $70 a month to help fund Aliyah. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
The decision to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and the inauguration of the embassy on May 14th, 2018 was an event for which we in Israel have waited 70 years and for which we, the Jewish people, have waited 2,000 years to be a free and independent people in our homeland, the land of Israel, and to have our eternal and undivided capital, Jerusalem, recognized by our greatest democratic ally, the United States of America. For those 70 years, the United States often pursued what I would call a deeply prejudicial and inapplicable policy. It was a policy in which Jews in Jerusalem were only allowed to build in certain neighborhoods. If they built outside those neighborhoods, they were considered illegal settlers. Now imagine that in any American city, Jews only being able to build and live in certain neighborhoods. It'd be called anti-Semitism. Palestinian Arabs in the city, by contrast, were able to build and live in any neighborhood. And even if they built illegally and Israeli police took down their illegal structures, Israel was blamed by the United States for illegal demolition. It was a prejudicial policy toward Jews and an inapplicable policy that spawned not one but 3 different U.S. consulates in that city, each serving a different population. That madness, that prejudice, came to an end on May 14th. A bold move, often in the face of brutal opposition from around the international community, but also inside the United States as well, from the media. President Trump and his team stood strong, and they proudly cut that ribbon and inaugurated that embassy, which has now brought other countries, Guatemala and Paraguay, and possibly some Eastern European countries, to follow suit. It has created an irreversible process in which the world will have to recognize, finally, Jerusalem, our eternal, undivided city, as Israel's capital.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rome.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.